We're going to learn how to convert temperatures between different scales, and we're going to do it without using a formula. I want you to be able to understand the math behind converting temperatures. And the reason that this is difficult is because some of these inventors of scales didn't keep the degree or interval the same. Kelvin kept the same interval as a Celsius, so that is a very easy conversion. And we talked about that in the last video. But Fahrenheit and Celsius didn't have the same conversion degree, so that makes it a lot more difficult. So we need a conversion factor between Fahrenheit and Celsius. If you don't know how to do dimensional analysis, you'll want to make sure you watch dimensional analysis videos probably first. But the difference between freezing and boiling on Fahrenheit was a difference of 180 degrees of Fahrenheit. And the difference between boiling and freezing on Celsius, of course, was 100. So you'll see that 180 degrees of Fahrenheit is equal to 100 degrees of Celsius. So a degree of Fahrenheit and a degree of Celsius are not the same interval, not the same spacing. They're a little different. So what we're going to do is we're going to be able to use this conversion factor. I can write this conversion factor two ways in dimensional analysis. I could write 180F over 100C, or I could write it as 100C over 180F, depending on whether I'm converting from Celsius to Fahrenheit or whether I'm converting from Fahrenheit to Celsius. I'll use one of those conversion factors. So when we're converting temperatures, we don't actually convert the temperature that's given. We have to compare that temperature to one of the reference points, either the boiling or the freezing. We compare how far above or below one of those points. I don't really care which one it is. You get to choose. But you have to compare how far the temperature that's given is above or below one of those things. And that is what you're going to end up converting. This can be complicated. So we're going to do several problems. We're going to do three different problems here. The first two problems we're going to convert with Fahrenheit and Celsius scales, and then I'm going to make up some mythical scale that see if you can still be able to do it. So let's look at this first problem here. We're going to, and let's keep in mind, remember these conversion factors here. 180 degrees of Fahrenheit is equal to 100 degrees of Celsius. Okay, so let's look at this first problem here. So we want to convert a temperature of 80 degrees Celsius. So that's, I don't know, somewhere like in here. 80 degrees of Celsius, and I want to convert that to find out how many degrees of Fahrenheit that is. So, like I said, we don't convert the actual temperature. We don't convert the 80 degrees of Celsius. What we do is we see how far above or below 80 degrees Celsius is in comparison to either the freezing or the boiling. It doesn't really matter. I could say it's 80 degrees above freezing, or I could say it's 20 degrees below boiling. Either one is fine. Let's say that it is 20 degrees below boiling. You just have to remember in this problem which one you compared it to. We're going to compare it to boiling, and we're going to say it's 20 degrees of Celsius below the boiling point. That is what we're going to convert. We're going to convert that one. So we're going to use a conversion factor, and I need Celsius on the bottom so that it cancels out. And you'll remember there were 100 degrees of Celsius for every 180 degrees of Fahrenheit. So my Celsius will cancel off. And if I do this, I'm going to get, if I do this on the calculator, I will get 36 degrees of Fahrenheit. Now, this is where people kind of mess up. Is that my answer? Is 80 degrees Celsius 36 degrees of Fahrenheit? And I think if you look on here, there's no way that can be the right answer. 36 degrees Fahrenheit is clear down here somewhere. So you have to remember, where did we compare it to? We we found that 80 degrees of Celsius was 20 degrees below boiling. So then we converted it and we got 36 degrees of Fahrenheit. But this is what? This is 36 degrees of Fahrenheit below boiling. And boiling on the Fahrenheit scale was 212. So we need to take 212 and we need to go down 36 degrees below that. 212 minus 36. And if we do that, we get 176 degrees of Fahrenheit. That is our answer right here. 176 degrees of Fahrenheit corresponds to 80 degrees of Celsius. So, this is confusing. So we need to, again, if you need to stop and pause and go back and look at that again, what we do is we take our temperature that we're going to convert from, in this case 80 degrees of Celsius. We don't convert that temperature. We decide how far above or below either freezing or boiling. It doesn't really matter. You make a decision how far above or below, and we're going to convert that. So we decide it's 20 degrees below boiling, and then we converted that difference in temperature to 36 degrees below boiling on the Fahrenheit scale. And so then we figured out what is 36 degrees of Fahrenheit below boiling on the Fahrenheit scale, and we get 176, and that is our temperature. So this should be 176 degrees of Fahrenheit. Okay, and the good thing about this is a movie, so you can pause it and replay it and see if you can figure that out. So let's go ahead and try to do another one. Okay, here we go. Negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Ooh, okay, so that's like clear down here somewhere. Negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit will be how many degrees on the Celsius scale? Okay, so what do? Do I convert negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit? No, I take the temperature negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit and I compare it to either boiling or freezing on the Fahrenheit scale. Well, I usually like to compare it to whatever I'm closest to, and here's freezing on the Fahrenheit scale is 32. So how far below freezing is negative 40? Well, it would be, if you go down 32, you're going to get to 0, then you go down another 40, so it's going to be 72 degrees. 72 degrees of Fahrenheit below freezing is what I want to convert. Okay, I don't want to convert negative 40. I want to convert 72 degrees of Fahrenheit. I want to know how that interval of Fahrenheit, how many intervals of centigrade is that also. So I'm going to convert that, and I use my conversion factor. I know there's 180 Fahrenheits for every 100 Celsiuses, and my Fahrenheits will cancel out, and I'll be in the correct units. And if I do that, if I take 72 on your calculator, take 72 times 100 and divide by 180, you get 40 degrees of Celsius. Is that my answer? 40 degrees of Celsius? It can't be, because 40 degrees of Celsius is like clear up here somewhere. Okay, so this, remember, 72 degrees of Fahrenheit was 72 degrees of Fahrenheit below freezing on the Fahrenheit scale. So now I have 40 degrees of Celsius below freezing on the Celsius scale. So what is freezing on the Celsius scale? Well, it happens to be 0. So what's 40 degrees below 0? It would be negative 40. And I chose this one to make a point. This is a very interesting temperature. This is where the Fahrenheit and Celsius temperature scales actually collide. Negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit and negative 40 degrees Celsius is actually the same temperature. So this is the one point where they actually collide to be the exact same numerical answer. So it's an interesting point. But if you look at this again, what we did is we took our temperature, negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit, we compared it to below freezing. We converted it to find out how many degrees of Celsius it would be below freezing on the Celsius scale. And then we went down to that temperature and found out what it was. Okay, let's do one more. here, and hopefully maybe you'll get this figured out. So 60 degrees of Fahrenheit is equal to how many degrees of, what's H stand for? Yes, Hermans. Well, that's a problem because I don't see a Herman scale over here. So what we're going to do is I can have you convert any kind of temperatures. If I convert it to something that's not a well-known temperature scale, then I'm going to have to explain to you what the scale looks like. So what does the Herman scale look like? So we'll try to draw another scale over here. Yikes, not good. Here's the Herman scale, and there's our temperature comes down here. There's our scale. And the only thing that I really need to know here is what is boiling and what is freezing, right? That's the only thing you need to know, because you need to get a conversion factor between freezing and boiling. And I'm just going to make up something. Let's say that freezing is negative 15 degrees Herman, and boiling is 45 degrees Herman. Okay? So, remember on the Fahrenheit, from freezing to boiling was 180. From freezing to boiling on Celsius was 100. And on Kelvin it's also 100. And on the Herman scale, from freezing to boiling, it's negative 15 all the way up to 45. That would be an interval of 60 degrees Herman in between freezing and boiling. That's all I need to think about my new conversion scale. So I have now, if you remember, I had 180 degrees of Fahrenheit equals 100 degrees of Celsius, and now I can say that equals 60 degrees of Herman. So I can use these conversion scales to do this. So I want to know 60 degrees of Fahrenheit. Where is that over here on the Fahrenheit scale? That'd be somewhere in here somewhere. Where does that correlate to on the Herman scale? Somewhere right in here. Where would that be? So I need to take 60 degrees of Fahrenheit, and I need to not convert that. I need to convert how far above or below one of my reference points that is. So if I go over here and I look at the Fahrenheit scale, 60 degrees Fahrenheit is above freezing, right? So how far above freezing? It'd be 28 degrees above freezing. 60 minus 32 would be 28 degrees of Fahrenheit above freezing. So that's what we're going to convert. So what's my conversion scale? Well, I see that for every 180 degrees of Fahrenheit change, I should have 60 degrees of Herman change. So if I do that, if I take 28 times 60 on my calculator divided by 180, I get 9.3 degrees of Herman change. Now, that's not my answer. Remember, I'm trying to figure out, let's see, what did I do? I did 60 degrees of Fahrenheit. I measured that above, that's 28 degrees of Fahrenheit above freezing, which means on the Herman scale, I must be 9.3 degrees above freezing on the Herman scale. But what is freezing on the Herman scale? It was negative 15. So I need to go 9.3 degrees above negative 15. And what does that take me to? That takes me to, change my color here, that takes me to negative 5.7 degrees Herman. I'm still negative because my freezing point was actually a negative 15. I had a really weird scale here. So I am above freezing. So the ice is melted at negative 5.7 degrees Herman. Ice is melted at that. That's actually, 60 degrees Fahrenheit. It's actually, fairly comfortable out. So 60 degrees Fahrenheit is negative 5.7 degrees Herman. And although that sounds cold on the Herman scale, it's not. It's about 60 degrees Fahrenheit out. So this is complicated. I understand that. You need to know the difference between boiling and freezing on a temperature scale. And then you're going to get the temperature. You're going to decide how far above a reference point that is, and you're going to convert that. And then you're going to add it on or subtract it from the reference point on your new scale. And hopefully you can kind of go over this video several times before you can figure out how we can easily convert between various temperature scales.